Well, neither does the world, so that's...
Jane, start. It's 2:30.
Doesn't
I-
happen usually
one of the-
recently.
He's always late. Sorry, I hate to use the word always. He's frequently late.
He thinks it's 3.
He said 2:30.
2:30 was very clear.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Good afternoon. This is the Town of Harpswell's Budget Advisory Committee meeting on February 18th, 2025. You have an agenda. Oh, wait a minute. I have to introduce everybody. I always forget that. Sorry. I am Linda Hall. I'm the chair.
I'm Marge Webster Warren.
I'm Jane Meisenbach.
And
Christy Ayana, Town Administrator.
Terry Gaudette, Deputy Town Administrator.
Jane Colby, Select Board Liaison.
thank you. Okay. Now, you all have an agenda in front of you. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. We'll note that we're still missing one of our members over here. Hopefully, he'll arrive soon. Item 3 is updates on the 2025 budget. These are things, we all got a list of these in an email, and these are things that have changed or been added by the selectmen. And Christy, you're going to talk to us about this?
Sure. So on December 16th, the Budget Committee concluded its report and its work with a $7.8 million budget. You then had a reconciliation meeting on January 8th with the Select Board, and there were a couple of proposed changes. The town was recommending a reduction in workers' compensation and an increase for renting some space for the harbor master's office down on Bailey Island. And that brought the budget to just under $7.8 million. It was $7.794. Subsequently, the Select Board has entertained some other changes. The first one that I want to propose is the code office coming forward with a suggestion that they have online permitting. We're seeing more and more communities moving in that direction. They'd like to be able to implement that in 2025. Software is proposed to cost around $11,000. I don't know if you have specific questions or if you'd like me to just continue down the list.
Any questions for Christy on that one?
No.
Oh.
Okay. And I will
I'm
say-
sorry, when would that get implemented?
Potentially 2025.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
As soon as it's approved?
It was a recommendation that came out of the Communications and Technology Task Force, that the town start moving in the direction of providing more online services, and this was one that was mentioned in that report.
Okay, thank you.
The next item is a reduction in the revaluation area of the proposed budget. Initially, the assessing department presented us with a proposal for the personal property revaluation aspect, and we have subsequently received a second estimate and able to reduce that number by like $64,000. So that's a huge savings.
That
It
number's
really
on-
pays to shop around.
It does.
Yeah.
So we feel very comfortable with that, and it's a very reputable company that could perform those services.
And
So
that number's down to 44,000
Yeah.
now,
Yes.
having been at 108.
The next item is a proposal for a $20,000 salary survey. The town finds itself in a situation where we want to be able to attract employees and pay competitive wages, and we feel like we may be slipping behind and having a more difficult time attracting candidates for some of our positions when they become available. We also worry about losing our employees to other communities that are providing more competitive wages and more competitive benefits. So that's an area we'd really like to bring in somebody who's a professional to take a look at that and give us some recommendations going forward.
Okay, so that would be a consultant that you
Yes.
get. Okay. Questions for Christy on that? Mac, and you know where we are? Are you okay? Okay.
The next item has to do with the Select Board making changes to various wages and salaries based on our current structure. And we have a structure where each position is at a certain grade, and there are midpoints to each grade, and we've been trying to move our employees closer to the midpoint. So some people get more of an increase if they're further away from the midpoint. And so the select board looked at that information, and there's a total of $41,730 in the wage and adjustment area, wage and salary adjustment area. And that includes also our fire and rescue people. We've got to keep competitive again in that area. So, we feel these wage adjustments are necessary again to retain and attract new employees. Health insurance, because we have some new employees and they're making elections that maybe we didn't realize might happen, we're asking to put another $15,000 in the budget for that purpose. We did receive a proposal to clean headstones at the old townhouse, and originally we had a proposal where they would have been sprayed, for lack of a better explanation, and now we really find those stones are so old, they really need hand cleaning, and it's a much more expensive process, and so that adds an additional $10,000. So instead of pressure washing, which could maybe potentially cause more
Destroy it,
damage,
yeah.
we think it's safer to do manual cleaning. The Maine Municipal Association membership dues went up $200 more than we anticipated, and then the town received a request from New England Fishermen's Stewardship Association for a $5,000 contribution. So that brings the proposed budget to $7,833,477. That's a 6.5% increase in appropriations from the prior year. It is the budget that the Select Board currently supports and is preparing to take to the March 8th town meeting. We wanted to give the Budget Committee an opportunity to weigh in on any of these changes, and then to hear also about the proposed new borrowing, which has come up since your review process, and then we would review our proposed use of unassigned fund balance, our revenue estimates, and then any other matters you might want to take up.
Okay. So before we move on to item 4, which is the Central Fire Station, I understand there's some representatives from New England, a Fishermen's Stewardship Association. Would you like to come to the podium and talk to us, answer questions?
Hi. Just so everybody's aware, my name is Dustin Colson. I'm the Director of Development for the New England Fishermen's Stewardship Association. I was not present at the meeting that you held last. As I said, my wife went through some surgery and stuff. We've had a lot going on, so I apologize if something that I answer is redundant, something you already heard. Again, I wasn't here for that.
We weren't here either.
Oh, great. That's good information.
Well, we have the videotape that we're able to view.
Excellent.
But we were not able to ask questions at
Okay.
that time. So assume we don't know anything.
Sure. Well, I'm going to know you know a little bit because I'm sure you've seen the flags around town. The New England Fishermen's Stewardship Association was started about 2 years ago, and primarily the platform is, it's advocacy for commercial fishermen from Rhode Island up into Maine. It doesn't just cover lobstermen. We cover trawlers and scallop draggers and basically anyone that's involved in the fisheries and makes their money on that. Primarily, we focus on trying to influence policy change so that it positively benefits our fishermen. And we are a nonpartisan group, so we don't take political lines. We've never looked at, politics as a reason to kind of go to bat or go against something. It's more along the lines of what's going to benefit the fisheries and the fishermen themselves. We do focus on stewardship of the ocean, so it's not just one of those things where we run around and try to push back every time there's a regulation that gets put into place, a conservation method. We agree with those generally, and we do agree that, conservation efforts do have to occur. We just think that sometimes some of the data that gets used is a little bit flawed, and we try to advocate from that perspective. So that's NEFSA in a nutshell. Like I said, I don't know much else as far as what was covered previously or specific questions you may have. And I know we have just over 100 members in Harpswell alone, though.
Okay, so Mac and then I have some
Sure.
questions.
Do you have any initiatives in aquaculture?
In aquaculture. So I'm going to defer to Jerry on that because we are in a constant ebb and flow when it comes to, initiatives and things that we have to look at. But we're not opposed to aquaculture by any means. Like, did you want to?
But do you have any members, do you have any members that are from?
Yes,
that?
we do have members. We actually have board members, too, that are in aquaculture as well. Aquaculture is a very vague word that can mean many things, from finfish farms to oyster farms to scalloping. These things, like any fishery, you can find a pro and con in any fishery. I don't care which one it is. Lobstering, whether it be trawling, gill netting, there's always negative and a positive aspect. The question that we ask, again, like Dustin touched on earlier, is the data that we're using to procure, a logical push in regulation and policy. First, it's got to pass the straight-face test. We have actual fishermen. I mean, I'm sure everybody paid attention when the Loper Bright case came through on the Chevron deference. That now shows who is industry experts. Well, we've got people with generational knowledge and years of experience on our water. The output that we're getting from the modeling system coming from the Science Center is not accurately depicting what's happening on our waters. This is where we push a lot in regulation and policy to allow more cooperative research.
Okay, when you say modeling, back up.
Modeling.
Yes.
Yes.
Who are you referring to?
The Woods Hole Northeast Science Center.
Woods Hole.
Woods Hole.
Okay. I kind of thought they were pretty experienced.
They do have a lot of experience, but it comes back down to trawl technique and trawl gear has been developed over the last 60 years, which is the same time series. The questions we've raised from industry recognizes that all captains with any experience recognize tow speed and duration is a direct inhabitant for collecting age class. Larger stock species can run in front of a net for over a mile, but when our protocols at the federal level stop the tows before a mile, how do we account for fish we were never designed to catch? That is some of the approaches that we work with the Science Center and the DMR to find cooperative way for fisheries to show that data so it can be inputted into the model to get a better outcome, a more realistic outcome that we can actually have a manageable fisheries instead of just doing quick reductions like 82% on the Gulf of Maine haddock, even though we recognize there's more haddock in our region than historically we've had in the last 30 years. And then the trickle-down effects are, when abundance of groundfish are overwhelming in the region, well, the negative effects of that is it eats forage. Well, the forage would be like herring stocks. And as we all witnessed, we had a 90% reduction on a 90% reduction in the herring fleet in Area 1A, which directly impacts the state of Maine alone, which also impacts our local lobstering.
Okay, remember, you're talking to people who don't understand this. So
Yeah.
I'm trying.
There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of moving parts.
I don't know. I got a family member in aquaculture, so.
But yes, no, we do support some varieties of aquaculture. There's others where we've actually, I think the town committee, the advisory group that we have, I mean, these are some of the questions we've asked there too. And, working with the other procurements with the DMR and the federal government through Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, Northeast Science Center, we can get some of these questions answered, which will direct policy in the betterment of preservation and sustainability for our fisheries for our future.
Great.
I think that answered, did I answer your
More
question,
than
Megan? Okay, yeah, TMI. I have a question, I have a lot of questions, but I'm trying to find.
I'll take it.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not the expert on fisheries.
You
I'm better with-
mentioned that you have 100, where is it?
Yeah, it's
105 families in Harpswell.
Correct.
And then 690, total population served is 691. Is
Yeah, so
that
those are
all
membership
of New
numbers.
England?
Yes, ma'am. So those are membership numbers.
Okay, so item 3 on our application asks for the percent of the population of Harpswell that's served.
Sure. Yeah,
And
so-
I'm not seeing that.
Well, your basic population here is about 5,000, right?
Yeah, so it should be 105 divided by 5,000, which is about 6% or 7%. Okay, yeah.
My calculator.
Okay, so there's just a number on here that got me confused.
Yeah, my apologies.
Okay. And when it's 105 member families, I would assume some families, there might be father and son out there,
Yeah,
so
I-
it's more than,
Yes, absolutely.
okay.
But the father and son generally join in their own independent level. and-
Okay, so they're independent, okay.
Correct.
all
We
right.
don't have family memberships.
And I'm going to ask maybe Terry this question, but maybe you know too. A couple years ago, the Maine Lobstermen's Association came to us and asked for some support. And I thought I remembered a number like 1,200 lobstermen. No? No, they wanted 10,000, and that was, Terry,
I don't remember the number from that application, but we can look.
okay.
I could
Is
certainly tell
that,
you how many lobstermen exist in Harpswell. If
that would be great, thank you.
I can get that back to you, that's no problem.
Yeah. You don't know off the top
Not
of
off
your
the
head?
top of my head, not in Harpswell.
Darn.
I apologize. I fished out of here, but it wasn't. I don't know those kind of numbers.
He gave us one the year before last, I believe we had 268 active vessels.
Okay, 268. That's like, did you say vessels? Okay,
Both.
okay,
268 vessels,
okay.
which is the highest in any town in the country for lobster.
Well,
That's why I-
we have the biggest coastline too, right?
That's
Okay.
what I hear.
And the third largest landings in the state.
Oh, okay, okay. I don't want to hog the microphone. If some-
Okay.
Okay.
Linda,
I,
I had
Oh,
a question that was
sure.
along that line. When we had that issue back with the lobstermen 2 years ago, was a specific?
Jane, speak into the
I'm sorry.
microphone.
It was a specific item. It was like something to do with the area where they could lobster, or was that?
I think it was they were involved in a legal case, and it was for their legal defense fund.
That's right. So,
Yes.
but for that specifically.
For lobster, wasn't it? Specifically for lobster. It was specifically for lobster, the $10,000 is what they wanted the money for, am I not correct?
Or their legal defense.
That would have been the
fund, yeah.
whale regulations, most likely.
There was
based on the
something that was
timeline.
going to prevent you from even, throwing
Right.
a trap right out here, where, of course, there are no whales. But,
You think?
well, there,
There have been dead ones.
true. Sharks. No, I'm sorry. I'm going sideways on this. Sorry about that. So I'm going to shift to the financial statements that you gave us. And I have to admit that your expenses are really high.
Yeah, they are, for sure.
And some of them I just don't get. You have someone who's salaried, who is your fundraising expert.
That's me.
That's you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so aren't you also, wait a minute, didn't I see your name as something else? Are you something else also in this organization?
I hope not.
Oh.
If there's a check going, I'm not getting it.
Okay. Okay, that's you, all right, so
I'd love to
that's
see
you.
that.
But then there's another line item that's event and fundraiser expenses.
Yes.
So the sum of those is well over 100,000.
Yep.
And last year, you took in around 16,000 in fundraising, up under revenue.
16.
Donation.
Donations is higher, but events and fundraising is,
Yep.
Correct, yeah.
so,
So I'll give you a little bit of insight on
Yeah.
some of that. Basically, because we're a newer organization, a lot of the donations that come in are in the form of a donation, but it's an event sponsorship. That should have been attributed to events, and it wasn't last year. I've actually made the changes so that it is the case this coming year, but it doesn't mean that we don't generate money from those fundraisers by any means.
okay. So then looking at your budget for 2025, you're expecting to multiply that number by 10, it looks like at least,
I
or
would-
close to a 10.
I would, at a minimum, yeah,
Yeah, but still get the 600,000 in donations.
100%.
Okay. All right. I also saw and I'm just curious what this is. Salary Research Director?
Yeah, I'm unsure on the titling there. I know that we have 5 full-time employees, and he may have been brought on as a salary research director at that time, but as far as I know, that's just a mistitle. He does AV stuff now.
He does what?
AV, audiovisual. Yep.
Audiovisual. Okay. And that one's getting a significant increase next year.
The AV.
Oh, wait a minute, you're getting a significant increase next year on the budget.
What increase are you
I see salary for the fundraising and event manager going to 77,000.
Yes, that's correct.
And your research director also, well, not as much. Okay. I'm just concerned when I see all these expenses.
I hear you.
So, is there any thoughts about scaling back at all?
Oh,
Or-
we are.
Here comes Jerry, okay. Or something, I don't know.
As far as AV and the uptick is for the services we're providing across the multiple states, this requires more time on the road. It's not like we're just working the state of Maine. I mean, we go to the Science Center, Rhode Island, Atlantic States Commissions are happening in Washington DC, which is requiring more travel time, and working with the commissions out of 3 states too, which are all directly inputted into our local commercial harvesters here in town. Even though we're working that increase right now, like with AVs, an average person putting out the same quality of content, we actually looked at other avenues of collecting a new AV services. It was almost double. And because, some of our folks that we have working on us are stemming from fishing families, most of all of our board are commercial fishing families. I mean, everybody has at least 20 years of experience in their fields and in their regions. We're actually getting half price compared to what other outputs like MLA are paying.
Okay, who's the other one you just said? Oh, Maine Lobstermen.
Maine Lobstermen,
I got it.
Massachusetts
I'm just-
Lobstermen.
Okay,
The same thing. If we were to match that, I mean, he's also verifying all the fact checks through peer review through the Science Center too. So everything that we put out has been peer reviewed by the science.
so, and I understand, Jerry, you're a lobsterman, is that right?
I'm a commercial trawlerman.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
Got it wrong.
yeah. I used to go lobstering many years ago.
So you're doing that and this job, because I saw that you're.
Yes.
you were
Well, I
CEO.
try to get out fishing as much as we can, but between Atlantic States, New England Council, Mid-Atlantic Council, the DNR.
You're not out as much as you'd like.
Not as often as I really wish I was.
Okay.
A lot more meetings these days on land. I should have just stayed quiet 3 years ago, but we had major issues coming.
Oh, sorry, Mackin.
Your new organization, are your books audited by
Yes.
CPA?
Yes.
That's fine.
And since we were newer, we were audited a little sooner than we thought, so, but yes, everything is checked. We have staff that does all the bookkeeping for us too, third party. Yep. So all Ts crossed, Is dotted.
Great.
Other questions, Marge?
I do. When I look at this current budget and not getting money from other towns, I need to ask, are you?
Swans Island was giving the MLA $10,000 a year. This year, the select board was it Swans Island, Jason Joyce? Yes, I think they were asking to put the procurement to NEFSA this year. Generally, it's always been MLA, but yes, other towns are doing the same as we requested here.
So you have other towns contributing right now? Because on your application.
Well,
it
on the
says 0.
application, it would say 0 because we just asked all
You
the
just
towns
asked.
this year.
Okay, this is current.
Yes,
Okay.
Currently, you're asking other towns. Now I'm going to
yes.
be the dog in this fight and ask, how many other towns are you asking?
I believe we put it out, yeah, you can answer that
Because
one.
of the fact that towns have different budget timelines,
Absolutely, understand it
and
very
different
well.
dates. I believe we have 8 requests in right now that are currently pending or in the process of seeking approval. And then there were several others that we've identified through membership that we're going to have to wait until the next fiscal year because of where their timelines fell as far as starting this process. So.
Okay.
I love fish, so I'm supporting fishermen.
Okay. Okay, so,
But yes, we have reached out to several others.
okay,
Yeah.
that's and I had that question too. Okay, so I'm going to go back to something you said earlier, Dustin.
Yeah,
You stated that you were nonpartisan.
correct.
a year ago, when Jerry, you were running for selectman, I went to your website, and I have to say, it didn't seem very nonpartisan. And it was very anti things that were going on in Washington, D.C. And now when I go to your website, you're quite happy with what's going on in Washington, D.C. So I don't sense nonpartisanship here.
The policies.
With names
With
being
names,
mentioned.
the policy of the fisheries is our direct outline. We've also reached out to, Senator King, Congressman Pingree. We do the same thing with Jared Golden's office. We work with them quite a bit on a lot of these subjects, especially with the LMA questions. We've left an open door to everybody. I do not have the magic key to say what policy is accepted and what isn't. But we are always willing to work with either side of the party to do what's best for industry in the long term for sustainability for our stocks. And yes, a lot of the news articles, but those same articles, I've also asked CNN, I've also asked the others to pitch these, and I'm not the editor-in-chief. I can't pick who puts these out.
The editor-in-chief of your website? Or?
Of any of the news organizations that you see that are posted up on our website. Whenever there's a comment about fisheries, regardless of either side of the aisle, we will post it. I mean, granted, yes, the headlines do look like it's a partisan, or like it might look like it is, but it's definitely not taking place. Half of our board is out of Massachusetts who are on the Democratic side, and we have independents as well. But what we do, what we strive for at every board meeting is an open dialect on either side. Two heads are always better than one.
Other questions? Okay.
All right, thank you.
I was going to ask Ms. Covey, you spoke at the select board meeting, and would you weigh in on this for us?
Well, thank you. I can say the same thing I said then, that our history has been to fund projects or programs, or in the case of the Lobster Association, their legal efforts in a couple of years ago it was, I think. And with this request, I see it as an endorsement of the organization as the organization for the whole range of activities. And as a young organization, that my concern was that the community doesn't know it well, and for the selectmen to make that endorsement on our own was to take a prerogative that may or may not reflect the judgment of the community as a whole. And some of the advocacy naturally is asking about the environmental industry, if you want, their concerns. So there are two sides to those questions that I know environmentalism is a concern of many people in Harpswell as well. So that was what was behind my concern. And I think I don't think I have anything to add to what I said at that meeting.
All right.
I just
I
elaborated
didn't
a
know
little
if
bit more.
everybody had.
Yeah.
Okay, and did administration want to say anything? No? Okay. Marge?
I wanted to know, everybody else who is not attached directly to the town has to have their deadline for funding request in by October 30th. And as Terry knows, I'm a stickler about getting them in on time or don't get funded. So I guess my question is, why yours was not in on time?
Yeah.
Or did you not?
Good question. Didn't know, probably.
Yeah, no, I wasn't aware, and it's my own fault. It was kind of one of these things that as we've started to look at funding and funding strategies and start to explore different avenues, things we hadn't pursued yet, obviously the towns were kind of a big one that stood out to me as something that we should be pursuing. We know that NEFSA has a strong presence here in Harpswell, and it was one of the reasons that we identified Harpswell as a potential candidate. I acknowledge that obviously that was submitted outside of the deadline, and I apologize for that. I can't.
I understand.
You know. What's that?
I do understand what you're saying, because you have to be aware of it.
Correct.
But
Yeah,
also,
and
don't
so
forget-
obviously it's on my calendar and timeline now for next year, and that's not an issue. And not just for Harpswell, for everywhere. I've started to maintain an actual calendar where we can make sure that these deadlines are met. That's atypical of something that I would do, but we did want to put it in there. And we appreciate the fact that, that it was considered.
And don't forget to go after your counties, too.
Oh, there's a long list, ma'am.
Actually, while you're still there.
Yeah, I'm here.
Do you anticipate this request being an ongoing every year?
Well, as I just mentioned, obviously, I'm running a calendar. I would not be doing my due diligence if I wouldn't, seek additional funding as needed, as requested. But it doesn't mean that there's an expectation around continued funding or that, that we would expect Harpswell to always step up the same way. Obviously, budgets change every year, costs change every year, priorities change with the wind, it seems like. And we acknowledge that. But I would be a poor fundraiser if I didn't see an opportunity and at least try.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any other questions for these folks?
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you, I
for
appreciate
coming
it.
and talking to us, educating us.
Always available.
Okay. Okay. All right, so, that was item 3 on our budget. We have item 4, which is the proposed borrowing for a central fire station. And I see several representatives from our fire stations
My highlights.
back here again to talk to us. Christy, do you want to introduce this?
So I want to give a little bit of background and context before you get into it. Back in 2017, the town meeting in Harpswell appropriated $100,000 to plan for a central station in the Mountain Road area. So it had been an item under discussion with our fire and rescue planning group for quite some time. We kind of got started a bit on it around that time frame. We used our engineering firm to kind of look at locations around where the current paramedic building is on Mountain Road. And, we did a little more work with actually a local architect who started to kind of lay out what the building might look like. And then we sort of ran up against COVID and some other things, and it just wasn't at the top of our priority list. But the Fire and Rescue Planning Committee brought this issue up again, probably in the 2023 timeframe, and suggested that we needed to do some more planning. We needed to get more prepared for what a building might look like, where it might be located, and what it might cost. So the town used that planning money to hire Port City Architecture. We actually did an RFP or an RFQ. We interviewed at least 3 companies, and we selected this firm, which has a lot of experience working with Maine municipalities on these types of buildings. I believe, and the others can speak to it, that it was a very thoughtful planning process. The architects would come to the committee meetings. They would ask what current operations were like. They were trying to get a sense of where we might be going in the future, and they were making certain assumptions based on those conversations about what Harpswell might need going forward. And so you have, actually, there's some large renderings over there, and I have some smaller renderings, but what you eventually see is a building just under 12,000 square feet. It has office space, it has training space, it has a workout space, it has sleeping quarters, it has 3 bays, and it would be adequate for the next 20, 25, or longer period of time as Harpswell continues to see this trend of fewer volunteers, particularly in the firefighting area. So we're seeing national trends, we're seeing state trends, we're seeing local trends, that we're not getting the younger people necessarily moving to Harpswell, number one, and that's a whole nother question as well. But people are not, they don't have the time to commit to the certifications that are now required. And we do support our volunteer structure. I mean, this is to continue what we call a supplemental support system for our volunteer services. But we do plan to house the municipal firefighters in the central building. They would be in this location where they could equitably respond to all parts of the community. Currently, the 2 municipal firefighters that we have on duty Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., they're either at the Orrs Island station or they're at the Harpswell Neck station. There has been concern that when they're at the Harpswell Neck station, it's a long ride over to Cundy's Harbor to get to some of those locations. And when they're on Orrs Island, it's a long ride over to Harpswell Neck. So again, I think what we're trying to model here is similar to what the paramedic system has been, where the paramedic leaves from a central location and meets the volunteer services at the call. So that's kind of the continuation of that model. We would move the paramedic to the new building, and we would, continue to work with our volunteer organizations as long as we can to sustain the current model. These people have saved the town a lot of money over time with their services, and we'd like to continue that as long as we can, but we do need to plan for the future. The numbers just aren't necessarily there, and we don't want to be in a crisis situation. We want to have planned for this type of situation. So that's kind of, how we got to this point. And then in terms of the figure you're looking at, the architect, again, has worked with a lot of communities in Maine, recent ones that have built these types of stations, and they're using about $550 a square foot, but that's for an entirely wooden built structure. And the committee has suggested that the bays where the apparatus, the vehicle apparatus would be kind of like a manufactured prefab type of thing. And so that would reduce the cost for that area. And so we're at this number of about $6 million for a fully built and equipped facility for Harpswell. And it would be located at the entrance to the recycling center, generally the flattest area that they could find, and we would have to relocate the entrance to that facility, to the recycling center, to accommodate this building.
And you said 25 years?
Plus, yeah, I mean, and there's room to
A
add
minimum of
an
25.
additional bay too at this site. So it starts with 3 bays, and we could add another in the future.
Marge? Or
Go to Mackin.
Mackin.
7
Mackin.
questions.
you've got your 20 questions? Is
I
that-
do.
Which is 700.
Christie, determining 25 years or 30 years or 15 years, what are the criteria?
That's a good question. I recall the architect saying at least 30-plus years, but
Does it around population trends? What drives that number?
in terms of for planning purposes?
Yes. I mean, they've arrived at 25.
You know,
What's the recommendation?
I'm going to defer, maybe one of the members of the committee recalls more specifically that conversation, but I think there were some generalizations made.
Introduce yourself, Ben.
Not on. All right, there we go. Ben Wallace, Fire Chief for Cundy Harbor, Orrs Island. So the 30 years, at least 30 years was the lifespan of the building.
I see.
We were expecting at least 30 years in the lifespan of the building. The building is suitable to be able to handle 6 vehicles and/or boats. So, there's 6 parking spaces. We talk about 3 bays, they're double deep.
Right.
So there's enough for 6 vehicles there. There's enough living space for what we would consider the town would ever be able to support as far as paid staff goes. There's 6 bedrooms in the facility. And right
How
now,
many people would that be?
Six bedrooms, so there's
Six
places. Yeah.
oh, they get their own bedroom,
Yeah,
okay.
so, and currently with staffing, what we're asking for at town meeting for additional staffing, we're still only, paramedic and 2 firefighters on duty. So we're thinking long-term. Plus which, the site plan for the building was designed in such a way that we can take the west wall off of the building and add at least one more bay off to the side, add an additional 2 vehicles. So we're trying to be prudent about it. We designed a building that we thought could do everything the town would ever need to do, and then we pared it back because we're hoping never to need to do that. But we've planned for having to do that if we need to. Hopefully that didn't, kind of a roundabout way of,
What driving my question is, it's always, penny wise and pound foolish to build something that's too small, and then quickly you find out in 10 years, oh boy, we've got to double the size or some number.
well, let me say this. Personally, this is not, I don't think, I want to make sure I'm not saying this isn't the committee's position, but if all 3 departments were somehow to fail, and I don't know how that would be, because the departments, even with paid staff, are going to continue to provide the roles that they have.
Yeah.
We still need to get 3 fire engines, 3 tank trucks, support vehicles, ambulances out the door. And to do that, everything we need to do to move water, as you're aware, we're not going to be able to do that with paid staff. We would need more paid firefighters in the city of Bath to be able to haul the water we need to support a fire. So we need to keep the volunteer system going. But,
All for it.
yes, so we still need the volunteer fire companies. They may, even if every firefighter in town was working out of this building, we still need our driver operators, we still need our EMTs, we still need all of these staff that support fire and rescue in the town of Harpswell, and have been carrying that for 50, 60, 70 plus years now.
Yeah. That wasn't the drive of my question, really. I just want to be sure that this building is truly adequate for the long term that's been put out, 25 years, and isn't being sort of scaled back in the interests of economy and making it.
So one of the
So it
things
will
we,
pass
yeah,
the,
so one of the things we
town
considered, the only thing we really scaled back on was, we scaled back on the number of bays, the number of parking spots.
But you can expand it.
Correct. It's designed to be expandable for that purpose.
Good.
We didn't do any scaling back on the administrative living training spaces because those spaces are more expensive, according to the design professionals. They're more expensive to try to come in and cobble together later.
Right.
So it made more sense to us to make sure that the non-vehicle spaces were what they needed to be for anything we could conceive going forward. And I think we have had agreement on that portion of the building is as much as we believe we're going to need in our mindsets. But again, so the spaces that we cut back on was the parking spaces, because we feel that 6 parking spaces is enough for the foreseeable future.
Gotcha.
And we designed it to be able to expand. And quite frankly, the garage spaces are the least expensive part of the construction, even had to be done in the future. Whereas if we had to expand the rest of it, it'd be way more expensive.
Got you. Good, thanks.
Yep.
Marge?
I got lots of questions. Don't run away.
Don't go away, Ben.
Don't go away. You're not getting away that easy, sorry. I'm on the same plane with Mackin. I'd rather see you build this building bigger. I don't think it's big enough if you're looking at the population in the last 5 years. So I support bigger. And I also support everything else that you have to meet under state and federal law, the sleeping, workout rooms and all of that. Make sure that it's adequate. I understand what you're saying, but I'm definitely against a wooden building. Because towns and municipalities are not known for taking care of their buildings. There's no mention of what the roof is going to be. I'm a steel roof girl. And I know that you can modernize and expand on brick buildings, but I'm against it being wooden. I'm against it being metal because it's not economical. And what's the roof? And I don't think it's big enough.
So you're a
And-
masonry kind of girl.
You're
You're a masonry kind of girl.
I am, because towns and municipalities do not have the reputation of taking care of their buildings.
Okay,
Don't
so-
believe it, we can show you.
So let
I'm
me.
going to disagree with
Can
that.
Can I just, on that though,
Let
may
him-
I?
Oh, sure.
And then you
sure.
can-
Now, I'll
Yeah, you
find
can
it.
So-
fight with me.
I've seen all three types of construction in fire stations. And what I can tell you from my experience is, you cannot maintain all three of them. So,
Oh, we got cowboys, yeah.
So, I was a member of the Masonic Lodge up in Brunswick. And they have a brick building. And you've got to repoint the things on a regular basis. I mean, they require just as much maintenance, really, as some of these other buildings, because they have water infiltration through the bricks, through the masonry. So the reason we went with the combination was, and this was based on the recommendation of the designer, was that the wood frame, we could insulate sufficiently to reduce the life cycle costs of that portion of the building, whereas the garage bay portion of it, which is going to be a metal building, doesn't need to be kept to temperature like you would your house. We only need,
Right, I
maybe
understand.
60 degrees, and we're good there. And the additional cost, I'm trying to remember what the additional cost was between wood frame and metal on that portion of the building. It was enough, I mean, it was six figures. The difference in cost was six figures, that we had a lot of heartburn over. I mean, we're already bringing a $6 million request to the town.
I'd rather have a $7 million or $8 million that I know is going to last 25 years, and going to be exactly what you need and exactly what this town. I just don't, I support fire departments, I'm not saying I don't. I think I'm on the same page as Mackin. We want it to be what you need and look down the road and have exactly what you need, and,
So our hope is the 6 parking spaces is going to be what we need, but we've planned for worst-case scenario, right? We don't want to spend worst-case scenario money, but we plan.
I
for
understand that.
So,
But what you're paying today per square foot is going to be more
yeah,
in square foot in 18 months from now.
yeah.
And I'm looking at $550 a square foot, and the price of steel. I don't often print off stuff. This one had my dander right up in the roll here.
Could I
That's going
address
up by the
one thing you
month.
said
Versus the-
before you go on to your next statement? This town, my experience, I've been on this board a long time.
Since God was a small child. And you had good knees.
Really maintains its buildings. And this building we're in, were we on the third painting of it or so, at least? And we added on to it. The room we're sitting in was added on. But, other towns may not maintain their buildings, but I feel strongly that this town works very hard to maintain its buildings, so I'm going to disagree.
That's okay.
That,
It's not the first time you and I disagree.
it won't be the last either. But I don't call that an argument, but
So I appreciate both your comments. I have had feedback in the last couple of weeks about the town builds stuff too small and they have to turn around and go back to town.
I bet
And
you
they
have.
use this building for an example of that, building the building in a floodplain and then having to turn right around and come back because it wasn't big enough. And so we're sensitive to that. I mean, we're still learning from the paramedic building being significantly undersized from what we intended it to be. And so we don't want to take that risk either.
Good.
Because you're absolutely right. There's no cheaper dollar than today's dollar,
Correct.
right? And the design professional, he made sure to make that clear with us that, if you don't build it today, come back in 4 years and it's not going to be $550, it's going to be $7 or $750 a square foot for this building. So we understood that, but at the same time, we couldn't come in and say, well, we're going to put 4 bays on it, and we may never use 2 of them. That just didn't seem prudent to us. I mean, we're all stewards of the public money, so.
Oh, you'd have to be defending that, if you're not using it, I realize.
Yeah.
But your question on the metal building is $3,600 a month versus $1,794. So I understand that.
Okay.
Jane,
Well, just to Christie's point, we hired these people, we paid them whatever, $100,000, and I thought they took all this into consideration.
Yeah, our contract with them was about $34,000.
Oh, 34, sorry.
That's better, huh?
Yeah, and we went by their
Something was 100.
recommendation, so. I mean, we
Yeah,
listened to their
you looked at-
recommendations.
And they were looking at the population trends and everything with the town, I assume.
The population trends were outside of their scope of work. Their scope of work was to design a facility, a centrally located facility that met the needs of the town, relying on the expertise of those that were sitting on the Fire and Rescue Planning Committee through those conversations. So, I mean, that's the way I would present it. We didn't do an outside study that looked at those aspects. There was a report of a work group that came back and looked at proximity to the station and travel times and stuff like that, but that was not part of the scope of the design professional for the building.
Well,
Jane wants to
that
say
was
something.
really,
Okay, yeah, we got Jane.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
That was really sort of the core of my question, though. This town is growing. The people who are moving here are building more complex structures, very much, and that's why I just want to be sure that you've gone beyond that narrow scope you just enunciated.
That's it, that's all.
Even informally, or the select board has come back and asked these questions of you. So we're not back here with another $1 million request 2 years from now.
So, again, the work group did look at that aspect,
Good.
the proximity of the new station to some of the underserved areas of town.
Right.
But in my mind, to me, the more important thing is we have a limited resource. We have a shortage of firefighters.
Got it.
We've got to put them somewhere that they'll serve all areas of town as rapidly as possible.
I don't
because
question
yeah.
that one bit.
Yeah.
It's,
And the reality is the building is sufficient enough
yeah.
that if we need to put more firefighters in this building, it's built, the capacity is built such that it can do that.
Okay, Jane.
A couple of things. One, if I remember in the first workshop the select board had with the designer and the committee, the committee had talked about making the whole building metal instead of wood frame. And they recommended highly against that because it's not as durable as a wood frame building. And I think the shingles are going to be manufactured something or other and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
So-
the primary thing, though, was, so the wood frame was going to be far more efficient to operate and maintain.
Yes, yeah.
And the cost of steel is going up.
Yeah.
As we all know, it seems like every 2 weeks we hear about
Yeah.
it's going up and up and up.
Yeah. So
but you're
that
correct.
cost savings, the cost saving may not be a real reality when we get to this. But so that's number one. And number two, remind us, we're going to have a 4-station fire and rescue service. And who knows in 15 or 20 or 25 years, if there's more capacity needed, how the existing fire stations might complement and
Sorry.
be a resource for expanded needs of service.
So
That's just something we don't know.
Yeah, I'll give you a quick example, and it's not the first time it's happened. Car accident on January 31st on the Cribstone Bridge.
Yeah.
Oars Island could not roll a fire engine or an ambulance. The 2 paid firefighters came from Harpswell with engine 9. Took 20 minutes from the time the alarm came in to the time the first fire truck arrived on scene. Fortunately, the paramedic got there in about 8 minutes with their little nimble car and was able to determine that they didn't need the ambulance. But it took 20 minutes from the time the alarm came in until the time that the paid firefighters came from, all the way over to 1426 Harpswell Neck Road to Cribstone. So that's what keeps me up at night. And it's not because we're not trying to recruit, just for the record. Right.
Ooh, we'll have to rebuild the bridge then.
Oh, go there, Ben.
Yeah,
We're still hiring
that's
volunteers.
not on the agenda today.
We're still hiring volunteers, so I can get you the application, anybody who wants it, and we have no qualms about who you are, as long as you can put gear on, an SCBA on, and pass a fit test. We'll use you. And somehow, apparently, 70 years old, doesn't matter. You can be a firefighter till you're 78. Our oldest firefighter is 78 years old.
I'm out. Unfortunately.
Our average age of our firefighters is over 50 now.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, thanks.
Okay, don't go away, Ben.
No, Ben's off the
Oh,
hook.
okay. And Marge has more questions.
This is just one like, hi, Jonathan Burbank, firefighter in Cundy's Harbor and president of Cundy's Harbor Fire Department. I'm wearing my logo gear for you guys. Firefighters love logo gear. One of the challenges of designing this building was that we have a current and immediate need. We have town firefighters that are in the wrong place lots of the time. And the situation on the paramedic building is less than optimal. So we have this short-term, right now, kind of need. Then we have this longer-term need where we definitely need more space. Now, you can argue, does the space need to be this, or this, or this, or this? But we had a long series of conversations with the architects about the idea of, can we come up with sort of modularized, expandableized, something where we drop now, we get, when we need it, we can put it in a reasonable table, whatever. The recommendations on that and their opinion of Port City was, you're nuts. I mean, that's just about as plain as they could say it. First, it's not going to be practically possible. Second, the costs are going to be way out of line with what you think they're going to be. And so the one area that people have spoken about where this didn't turn out to be true is the bays, in that it's reasonable on the metal part of the building to be able to not build one now that you don't need right away, or you don't foresee needing right away, and add one later. The rest of the building, the answer was, you can't make this in kind of a accordion fashion and pull and push.
So if we, I heard we had room for 6 firefighters.
Get out of this. Ben is, I'm not Ben.
Well,
so
someone else could
Ben,
answer.
Well, what was the question? Maybe I
Okay,
can answer, otherwise
well,
I'll
I understood
defer to
that there would
somebody
be
else.
accommodations for 6 firefighters,
6 people,
6 people. Okay.
one of which in our current model would be the paramedic.
Instead of
Because
staying in that building.
Why,
Correct.
yes.
Okay, I'm
Have you
sorry, I
ever
missed
been,
that.
have you ever been in that building?
No, can I go there?
You can. You can.
Okay.
You can have a tour
Not
as a
today.
town official.
I remember when we
It
built
won't,
it.
it won't take very long.
So I'm sorry, I missed something. Are we tearing down that building?
That's-
No, we're
that-
adding.
That's
Never
not on
mind.
the, not,
Never mind.
not on the table with the
Okay,
conversation
so we're
with the
going to
fire
have
and rescue.
5 firefighters and 1 paramedic.
Yes, and in the firefighting business, a crew is 5.
Okay, and what happens 5 years from now if we decide we need 8 firefighters in that?
Bunk beds,
What?
bunk beds.
Well, that's what I thought of that, but I just wanted. Bunk beds?
Some other answer.
Some other answer. Okay, but there would not be
The-
additional.
So, you're trying to, and I've not used this words before, but you're trying to come up with a plan where the idea is that we're going to sit here and say, in 25 years, the correct answer is X.
That's not possible.
Okay? We cannot do it.
Can't.
So the best advice we can say that we have right now is that the future, the best future outcome, right, is that the town staff grow, but they aren't going to outgrow the building. Now, when they grow, and, what's the next step? Is it 2 by 24, 3 by 12, whatever, right? It grows. But the opinions of those of us who've been doing this for a while is we are unlikely to outgrow this building in a model that's anything like the one we have today.
In 25 years. Yep.
Unless you guys have a plan that we don't know about to install municipal water supply
Yeah, there.
and drop hydrants down all of these places, we have a challenge to fight fires in this town of moving water. And it takes a lot of people and a lot of equipment.
get it.
So,
We need those scoopers.
Okay. Thank you, Jonathan. Marge,
Yeah, I do.
she's got more
I'm going over
questions.
here. No, you're all set.
Okay, who are you
To
asking?
the firemen, thank you so much. I appreciate it. My question is, town meeting is how many days away? 18, something like that? 18, 19 days? I don't know. How's my math on that? Are we going to do a public hearing like at the school?
We had a public hearing here.
Perhaps I can answer that. Hi. Yeah, Dave Mercier, Harpswell Fire Chief. We're having a meeting at Kellogg Church on Sunday from 3 to 5 as an informational meeting to provide any information relative to the central station for those folks that want to come to Kellogg to get additional information. The town's just done a great job with having public meetings here, but there may be some group of people out there that either haven't watched the selectmen's meetings or may want additional information. So it's an informational meeting. But to make a point about your wooden buildings, Harpswell Fire Department is a wooden building, and it turns 75 this year. So,
That's when they build buildings well.
and which is only just a bit younger than I am. So,
That's
so
TMI.
I think a properly maintained building, regardless of its construction, will serve us well. And we really did look at those issues. And one of the other issues that I think certainly was important to me was building a station that's going to fit in with our town. We don't want a building up there that isn't aesthetically pleasing for our town, so that people come by and say, well, that doesn't fit, that doesn't look like Harpswell. So I think we worked hard to build an efficient building, one that would last 30-plus years, is what we've been told, and will fit in with the community. And the other thing we're looking to do, when you talk about growth, for example, Harvey's done some studies recently looking at building permits, and greater than 70% of the building permits that have been taken out from 2008 to 2025 are occurring north of the current fire stations. The growth in Harpswell is north, Mountain Road area and north. Those areas were identified in the 2008 study as being underserved because of their distance from the existing stations. So there was a lot of factors that were taken in, not simply just putting it, oh, let's put it next to the town office. We studied response times, we studied growth in the community, and we looked at all those issues. So there was a lot of planning into building a station that does meet the future needs of the community. And, the population has fluctuated. It seems to me in my history, and I've been here a few years, that it's fluctuated around that 5,000 mark for a number of years. It's gone down to 48, I mean, when I was a young man and, a girl got expecting, somebody left town. So the population never changed, So it stayed the same forever.
I have no questions on that one.
Explain that one.
So there was some stability for a number of years, but that may have changed. But I think we have made a really concerted effort in relying on the expertise of the architect we've chosen to make this a really good building and serve the town well. Thank you.
Thank you.
After your comment, I'm going over here with my question. I'm not going back to you. I'm new to town, so I'm there correctly.
Okay, so
How
Marge, do
sure,
you have more questions?
on the acquiring $1 million and $2 million federal funds, how guaranteed assured are you that with this economic times and this?
No
what's going-
guarantee.
Thank you.
Doesn't mean we won't ask.
Oh,
No.
use every source we can. Thank you for your question. Thank you for allowing me to ask my questions.
I thought you had about
Oh,
15
yeah,
more.
I was
Well,
settling in.
you want to read mine and see if you've got any?
Okay, I think we're done. Thank you, firefighters, for coming.
Yeah,
And
Thank you for your work on it, too.
really.
we have item 5.
Madam Chair, may
Do we
I,
want to back up and?
may I just
Yeah.
procedurally ask a few
Yeah,
questions?
yeah.
So if this, I just want you to know this committee has to vacate this room by 10:04
Oh,
for a public interactive meeting with resiliency and sustainability. So setting that aside, if you need some more time, we should discuss that, but I'll just briefly go over the questions that we would have as this board, this committee may be aware. Our deadline to go to the printers for the town report is tomorrow morning. And so we did our best the select board just voted to put the central emergency services bond article on the town meeting warrant this past Thursday. So we did our best to organize a meeting prior to going to print. We wanted to have the opportunity for this committee to review the changes since you turned the budget over to the select board, including the $6 million borrowing, NEFSA, and the other changes that Christie reviewed.
Right.
So if you want to address, and I should say for the public and whomever's listening, is this is against your typical protocol. Typically, you hear budget items and you wait to make a decision until the next meeting. If this updated, shorter process doesn't work, then we can go without budget recommendations on the town report warrant, as there is time for the actual warrant. But with that said, we'd prefer to move forward with not just the select board's recommendations, but the budget committee recommendations. So as far as backing up, if this board feels prepared, we would greatly appreciate your input as a full committee on whether you're recommending NEFSA, the other changes, the $6 million borrowing. Did you have any questions on the financial part of the $6 million borrowing? I think you saw that in a memo. We're following our process that we did for our, prior to this borrowing, our largest borrowing was $3.5 million for the pier removal. We hired a financial advisory firm to review our options, which we've started that process now, and they will begin that review. The warrant article, as I indicated in the memo to the committee and posted online for the public's review, is that the number of years, whether it's 20 years, 25 years, or actually the whole financial statement is just advisory. Not that we want to say that you're going to do it for 25 years and the select board would change to 5 years. That's not, what that not being binding is all about. But the question for you now is, do you make these recommendations, and did the committee want to weigh in on the 25 years or 20 years, understanding that the select board is going to have this financial review done and will take all things into consideration on what's best for the town and moving forward, which may or may not be this committee's recommendation. And again, these interest costs are estimated, had to use what we had available to us, the Maine Municipal Bond Bank. But if we go out and issue our own bonds, which likely would be what we do, but need to go through our analysis and see if that's in the best interest of the town right now, as you have other costs that you incur with hiring different firms for that process. If we do, then interest rates could only get better, and we could hopefully decrease the total cost to this. So there is simultaneously, at the same time, activities going on that's going to make all these decisions. So you don't have every black and white decision before you, but that, just to boil it down, the questions are, where do you stand in recommending, or if you're not ready to?
I was going to propose that we go back to item 3, I think it was, and do a quick rundown on the select board changes, and see where the committee stands on that. So Is everybody on that list?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to start with Select Board changes. Account 1,000, the online permitting.
Fine.
Are we okay? We're okay. Okay, personal property reevaluation, that was a decrease. I think we're all quite happy with that. The salary survey,
Yes.
20,000.
Yes. Needs to be done.
Okay. The multiple departments, well, we don't have no choice on that.
No.
So that's been done, right? The health insurance is,
We don't have a choice on that either.
right, that's all done. Complete the headstones, that seems,
High.
pardon?
That seems high. I mean, how many headstones are there?
There are a lot of them, and they're very old.
They're fragile.
My great-great-great-great-great-grandfathers. there.
I don't have a problem. I personally don't have a problem with them.
It seems reasonable.
Okay.
Okay. The MMA membership, can't do anything about that.
Right.
Okay, so the NEFSA,
Okay.
I feel like, well, they were late putting it on, and I can't really wrap my head around it. I feel like the last time that something like this happened, it was for a very specific reason. It wasn't just a general support of an organization. So at this point, I would have to I'd have to pass on it.
are you abstaining then?
No, not abstaining, I'm voting, I'm not going to vote for it now.
So you're saying no? Marge?
They can come back next
Okay.
year.
Okay.
I'm on the deadline. I'm one of those on the deadline.
Okay, so
So-
are you saying no?
I'm saying no.
Okay. Mackin?
I vote in favor. I think it's an important group to sustain, but with a proviso, though, that you shouldn't take it as a invitation to come back for permanent funding of this, because your initiatives and outlook is changing over time, given your constituency.
I'm going to vote no also. I would prefer that, I'm with Ms. Covey on this. It feels like an endorsement of the association. I appreciate all of our fishermen here in Harpswell and here along in New England. And I know you're facing a lot of challenges. But I would prefer that we had a specific thing we're supporting rather than a general. So I'm voting no. And that sounds like 3 noes and 1 yes. Okay. Then going to the item 4, the $6 million borrowing.
Marge?
We'll start with Mackin.
Well, I'm in favor of it, but I have a couple of comments. That the $6 million is really part of something much larger. I mean, all the road work we've been talking about, things which you know about, which haven't matured to a point yet where you've gotten estimates and so forth and can bring forth reports. And so it's quite possible that really the town is facing, $10 million of capital expenses over the next, 5, 6 years. So we don't know the number. That's clearly. I'm all in favor of everything that's been said about the fire station, and we should go ahead with it. I hope, though, that when we get into the negotiation, that the covenants in the bonds provide sufficient flexibility for the town for refinancing.
Right.
We can change things as we go along and on and on. We're not getting cast in steel.
We always do. Yeah.
Yeah. Specific question, as I look down this interest rate column on the 20 and 25, I see that the rate is rising. Now, when you go to market and get bonds, they're not variable rate bonds. You make a contract with whoever the bond broker, seller, whatever it is, and that's your interest rate for the next 25 years. And both sides are accepting risk on that. So I was interested that you have the rate rising from 3.2 to 4.7 over that period.
Again, we have discussed this before at a budget committee, and all we had available was using Maine Municipal Bond Bank, and that is all the time how they do it. They
So
start
they
off
have a
low,
bit-
and as the principal decreases, their interest increases. And we have several private loans with individual banks. They also increased, some decreased when the market was better, and we're getting a little better now. But there's rarely one that we've had one interest rate for the whole term of the borrowing.
Interesting. Okay.
But with us, you know, if we issue our own bonds, we always put in the flexibility. We always put in early payment, restructuring, everything that leaves it available for what's in the best interest of the town.
And if you were able to receive government grants along the way and so forth, you can use that to pay down this borrowing. That's fine. Yeah. So I would vote it should go into the warrant and be put to the voters. Be my position.
Jane,
No, I agree.
you're saying yes?
Yes.
Okay, Marge?
I agree that it should go on. I'd like to see it as a secret ballot, but I will, like,
I think it's
I
too
will
late for that, unfortunately. And I would vote yes on that, too.
oh, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mackin, for
I do
your,
think that's a really good point. And we tell people, you have to be at the March 8th town meeting. If you want to vote on the Central Station $6 million bond issue, you have to be present. You can't come in and ask the clerk for a secret ballot, and we've had people asking for that. It's not on secret ballot.
thank you, Christie. Quickly, moving to item 5, we have about 4.4 million in our fund balance right now. We only need about 3 million is our target. And there's proposed uses of some unassigned fund balance, which you all got. 600,000 to help offset the tax burden. 200,000, oh gosh, I'm going with memory, to go to the town dock rebuild. 230,000 to go, up to 230,000, I'm not sure of that amount, for the demolition of the administration building at the Mitchell Field. And the other 200,000 was to help with the capital roads. We have 3 roads that need to be redone this summer. So any discussion on those 4 items?
And of those 3 roads, some of them will get some FEMA funds back, or those 3, no, nothing?
We anticipate, we're in discussions, but we cannot really count on when or how much. But again, it's an ongoing process.
Meanwhile, the roads need to be done.
You went to the Roosevelt Hotel and said, no.
Right, and just remind everybody, the town did receive close to 100,000 in insurance for the town dock. So that's probably part of that fund balance.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so do you want to vote on these individually or just the group?
Group.
The group, okay. Okay?
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm okay. All right, you got those.
Just a point of clarification, are you bringing sort of 2 motions in the warrant, 25 or 20 years, or are you just presenting what?
We're interested in whether the Budget Committee had a recommendation about what it suggested. As Terry said, it's not binding, that part of the article.
Okay.
It's just to give people a sense of what it might potentially cost, but as Terry said, it all depends when we go out,
Exactly.
most likely to get, our own bonds. What are the rates going to be like? We'll decide, or the board would decide at that time if it made sense to do 20 or 25. I just don't know if you have any type of recommendation at this point.
It's going to be driven by the market, whatever
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
So,
But I guess, is there an opposition to 25 years versus 20? Is there a preference? I don't know. We were interested in having a little bit of feedback from the Budget Advisory Committee on that issue, but, you're running out of time,
I know,
so
we're
I
running out of
totally
time.
get it.
I'll speak. I personally like to not have long-term debt, if we can help it. If we can do the 20-year, that's what I would like. And as I looked at the numbers, it actually looked not that different for the debt service on the 2. Just, yeah, not a whole lot. And to me, it would seem better, fiscally responsible to get
20 years.
it done if we can do that in 20 years.
I'm with you on 20 years.
So are we having a?
Yeah, I would,
I'm voting for flexibility.
So you're, well, but they asked for our opinion. Right.
That's an opinion.
Okay.
Yes. I'm
Mackin
indifferent
says
between the two.
flexibility.
What is the better deal?
Yeah.
Well, of course.
That's
I
the
see, I'm
bottom line.
more
It's
with
all-
that, too.
But isn't more years usually more expensive?
Not necessary.
Not necessarily. Okay, fine. Okay. All right, so we had 3 people say 20, or you don't,
Flexibility.
flexible?
Flexibility.
Flexible, all right, go with what's best.
Yeah, whatever's best.
Okay. All right, do you want us to vote on those December 16th minutes?
So moved.
Considering,
Is there a second?
Jane, I need a second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and
Motion for adjournment.
do you want us to adjourn, I think?
Yeah, it's
Yes,
Motion
we're
for
a minute
adjournment.
late.
adjourned.
We're adjourned. Okay, thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Feynman.
Okay.
Thank you, Ben.
I just have a point of clarification for the
But
committee.
it's not nearly what it was.
Madam Chair, I have a point of clarification. Would you come back to order? Is that possible?
Okay, we come back to order, but sit down again.
I just wanted to note that the $230,000 for the administration building, the select board has not made a final recommendation, so I should have told you that up front, because this Thursday, there is a group presenting a proposal to support rehabilitation of the building.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want to go on record now without having heard about that proposal with your own recommendation, or you just want to stay silent at this time, because again, it's not information that you've had.
We don't have that
It
information.
just came to the town today. It's been posted with the warrant. So you might decide not to make a recommendation on that point because you don't have enough
I'd say not
information.
to.
Not to what?
Make a
Recommendation.
On what we don't know.
Exactly.
But but Christie wants to know, are we still recommending the money for demolition?
But we could just not put a recommendation from the budget committee because you don't have
Right.
the whole
Picture.
picture
She said-
at this point, and I'm sorry I didn't mention that earlier.
No, I would say not to.
No recommendation. No that's what I'm hearing. And we are adjourned. Okay. Thank you all.